quicker or concise. So when we start and we open After Effects, first thing we want to do is import our assets, if you think of that. So we have our project panel. Let me get rid of some of these things that we're missing. So just like in Premiere, you can right click and select import. You would choose your files. All right. Once they are in your files or in your project panel, then you can drag them onto your layers. Now, let's see, I'm going to try to, yeah, let's do this so that it kind of resembles more what you guys are going to have. So your compositions are equivalent to sequences, all right, in After Effects. All right, and that could be some terminology here too. So actually I'm going to add that to our notes, is that your project or the timeline file in Premiere is a sequence, and the timeline file in After Effects is a composition. All right, so just different terminology, pretty much the same thing. So we want this to be on our stage or in our screen. First, I'm going to start with my background image. Actually, I'll bring another one in. I made one. I went a little off of their topic. So if you just have a picture for your background, and I'll show you a couple different ways of what you can do with this, because I think that having some choices is always good. You know, as Burger King says, you can have it your way. All right, so we would bring it into our project and then just drag it onto our screen here. That's not the picture I wanted. I don't care about kayak access. Delete it. Let's try that again. I wanted this one with like the grass kind of in the background. That one. I think that's a little more kind of neutral there. That is strange. Why does it keep bringing that one in? I don't know what that message was. It kind of didn't. Oh, maybe that was like a JPEG sequence, or maybe that was a video and it was grabbing a frame from it. Let's see. Alright, not spend too much time. It's not really that important. Did I even start recording? Alright. So I can rescale it by just dragging the edges. All right, pretty similar to Premiere. What we do see that's different though is, as I mentioned, if you expand your arrow here on the timeline, and we can kind of drill these down, as they say, you can adjust your opacity. You could even do rotation if you wanted to. You get your scaling, your positioning, and your anchor points. All right, so you have a lot of those kind of effect controls right in your layer option there. All right. The next thing we would do is we would bring in our logo. All right, so I'm going to choose this one. I think I liked a little bit better. You can drag it onto your stage area here. All right, and then I guess as we're saying, we drill down the layer, we transform it, we can scale it to be a little bit bigger. We can get our position right in here, or you can drag it on the screen. So you have options for transformation on screen, kind of in your view here, as well as down in your layer. All right. Now, what they recommend doing, and I think it's probably useful, is they call it pre-composing. All right. So pre-composing, and let's get a formal definition of this so that we get a full understanding. All right, places them in a new composition, which replaces the layers. They talked about it being a non-destructive editing. So I know that we did talk about that concept before. In doing non-destructive editing, you could always go back and kind of work on that later. or make changes, and it doesn't affect the original kind of state of it. So we're going to say, they called it logo placeholder. All right, so, right, yeah, so if we double click it, it goes and it shows us the individual file, but then if we close this, it shows us on the timeline. All right, so that is pre-composing. Actually, I'm going to add that. I'll do that when I'm done with our definitions. And also, what we can look at, our timeline here is going to 20 seconds. All right, you have a work area, and then you have, this is kind of our render area. You have these two lines. All right, so I think probably an animated logo shouldn't be too much more than about 5 seconds. All right, so we kind of talked about our in and our out points in Premiere. Our work area is going to be similar to that. So I can adjust that too, so it's only going to work with that. And now I can use this, this tab for Timeline Navigator, and I'm zooming into that. All right. You can also, which is not the worst idea, actually reduce the duration here of your clip, kind of like what we do in Premiere. All right, so see it's a different color there. So it's kind of essentially making that clip shorter there. But if we say that this is only going to go to this segment here, when we render it, or it's only going to do that amount. All right, so we have our layer, our image in here. We're kind of adjusting the duration of it. Now we're going to get into the effects. The first one they have, so in order to affect it, you must select it. So I didn't have it selected. It was grayed out. So after I select it again, I can go to Effect. The first one they're going to do is Bevel Alpha. All right, so you can see here, and actually, let's zoom in. By doing that Bevel Alpha, all right, and I can turn the effect on and off, it kind of puts a white edge around it. So you can kind of have your own type of preference to that. So the thickness of that, the intensity, all right, depending on how noticeable you want that to be. You could also change the color. So maybe like if I had a different color in the text, I would try to kind of coordinate that together. All right, and that's that first effect that they have there, right? So these effects are, you can get to up here. You could type them in over in your effects control panel also. So after we apply the CC light sweep, we're going to move that positioning of your light to the bottom corner, turn on your stopwatch, and then at the end of our kind of duration here, we're going to have it move across. So now if we scrub through, we see our light going across. Right? We can press the space bar like in Premiere, and we see it going across. All right, so that, and then they recommend, or they talk about in the tutorial, you can adjust the edge thickness. Oh no, that's the alpha one. I'm in the wrong category there. No, that is. So the intensity should make our band of light there get stronger, and the thickness, why is that doing that to the edge? That's the alpha category that it's working with there. Let's look at this. All right, so that's that. We have the width. There we go. So there's the width, sweep intensity, there's the brightness, and edge intensity, and we can change the color. All right, so that would be a really kind of magnified type of light going across. All right, so they applied one light sweep, and then we're going to apply another one. So we do Effect, Generate, CC light sweep again. This time we're going to change the direction of it. So instead of it being like you can kind of have them opposing each other. and then we can just adjust that center point. So maybe instead of starting on the left side, it would start on the right. And then to animate it, we are going to keyframe that and have that move across that way. So now we have these two bands of light kind of just traveling across your logo. All right. All right. It's kind of cool, right? It's kind of masked inside the image, and has a kind of interesting look. My idea with this is that now with all your videos, you can have your logo kind of animated at the beginning, just like we would see kind of like an advertisement for your company logo at the start of a project. All right. So that's kind of the major parts of this. Then they talk about the last effect that they do is to kind of create a metallic effect on it. So we go to Effect, Generate, and Gradient Ramp. So that puts this kind of texture over it. And then when we put it up to the top, see, this is the problem though then is that it knocks out the text. I think though what we can do, I think I adjusted the opacity on this somehow in the one that I had. Here, or maybe this blend. There we go. I adjusted this blend. So if you have text on there, all right, then it kind of, you can see through it a little bit more. But that definitely, I think, gives you that kind of metallic look to it. All right. And then, so what's not included in their tutorial is getting a background texture. So obviously, since I had some problems with this picture, being that it was an image sequence, if I do New, Solid, all right, it allows you to choose like the color for your background. All right. I'm just going to go with kind of a gray there. Now we would want to move it to the bottom so it's behind there. And then what I did is I chose Effect, Generate, and there's a bunch of stuff in here that you can experiment with. I mean, you could do a checkerboard. You can do, I did this fractal noise, I think was in here. Sorry, that's in noise and grain. And then fractal noise, which I think is kind of cool as a texture. You can go into here and the different types, kind of turbulent type of things, you know, smeary, and there's all kinds of different things that you can experiment with on here. You can then adjust opacity on there, and you can even then go and animate this, which is kind of cool. If you want to get some motion to the background, you could go in here and what was I going to do with that? Blending modes. Blending modes are the way things overlay with the layer behind it, so you can adjust that to kind of get some different effect with that. And then I think, oh, here we go, transform. So what I could do, maybe we want to make it get bigger and then smaller again. All right, so you can kind of play with that and have your background kind of animated as we're doing that. All right, so you can just go with a simple picture in the background or a solid color, but if you want to kind of start playing around and adding one of these textured backgrounds and animate it, I would give you extra credit for doing that. All right, so we have the two light bands that you're definitely required to have, your alpha edge and that gradient ramp, which I don't know if I'm always going to be able to see, but definitely the light sweep and the alpha edge. And then to make a video out of this, we're going to say composition, add to render queue. There's two ways that you can render in After Effects. So I had one in here. So we're not going to export anymore like we did in Premiere. And then if we click on here, the one thing I don't really like is that it doesn't give us an option for the H.264. So you can go in here and you can output this as an AVI, which are generally bigger file sizes. So you do your settings and then you press render. So it's going to go through here and do that. Just like we would have before, gives you your tone when you're done. You can also add it to Adobe Media Encoder, and I believe in here we can then designate it to go to your MP4 file. So it's taken a minute here to open the Media Encoder. It's kind of like another side program. Which is taking a while. Let's see if I can queue it up again. Oh, there it is. So it does take a minute. It'll pop up in the Media Encoder, but now I have the option to go directly to the MP4 file. And let's see what the difference in file sizes are between the two. So now I just have to press play, and hopefully it'll process this. Maybe it's going to take a little bit longer. There we go. Exporting preview. There it goes. So good. We see a preview down here in the bottom. I feel pretty confident that it's going to work now. Alright, so that's done. So now our final test here, which you should always look at your videos when they're done. So in After Effects, alright, so our AVI file, how many megabytes is this? 929,486 kilobytes. How many megabytes? What's our conversion? How many megabytes or how many kilobytes in 1 megabyte? Roughly. 1,000, alright? So if we divide this by 1,000, what do we get? 929,486. 929. All right. Just move that decimal place over. So here's our AVI. All right. That looks pretty good, right? Pretty decent quality. I see a little edge roughness in there, but I think we can live with that. Thank you. And then here's our MP4. Look at that file size. How many megabytes is that? 5. Big difference, right? Well, let's look at quality. Do we lose anything? Not really, right? So, I don't know what you're getting out of the AVI that's necessarily better, but that's why I always try to get us to go to an MP4, right? It's significantly smaller in file size. So we're going to save on upload speed and time and, you know, all that type of stuff, all right? And disk usage. All right. Okay, so I will